It's okay, Mark. We've been called worse than Savonis. I'm okay with that. So it's great to see so many of you still here. You are the troopers after we just ate a big lunch, so thanks for being here. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you to the Indigenous nations of this region for having me and all of us here as your guests. Personally, I want to do a special thanks to the elders and to the chiefs and to the youth who I have been learning an immense amount from over these past 2 days as they've shared their knowledge with us, so thank you for that. The discussions that I've been hearing at this conference are truly incredible. You can see the big smile on my face, and it's because of all of the discussions that I've been having. So many exciting Indigenous-led projects happening right now across this country, and I know so many more will be coming ahead. Kudos to the FNMPC team for this conference and for everything that you do to advance economic reconciliation for First Nations across the country. I especially want to give a shout out to FNMPC for the advocacy work, including a really great op-ed, I hope that you've all read it, on government-secured funding for Indigenous investment, something that Cenovus was alongside them in Ottawa supporting. The National Indigenous Loans Guarantee Program will benefit Indigenous communities, and it's going to benefit the entire Canadian economy, and that is something that we should all be celebrating. It's advancements like these that are a model for the rest of the world to follow. I grew up near Cutknife, Saskatchewan, on a farm that was just a bike ride away from the Poundmaker and the Little Pine First Nations. As a non-Indigenous person, I haven't lived the same experience as many of you in this room. What I did experience was witnessing many of my Indigenous friends and neighbors often be treated differently than the way I was being treated, and quite often in a very negative way. They often were not being given the same opportunities that I was being given. I remember this really distinctly from my childhood days. The examples at this conference give me great hope that what I witnessed in the past is changing, and it's going to be changing rapidly, and it's already changing. Congratulations to all of you in this room for making that happen, because if you're here, it means that you care about progressing that change. My personal commitment to being an ally to support Indigenous economic inclusion is shared by my company, Cenovus Energy. For those who don't know us, Cenovus is an oil and natural gas producer and refiner with operations across North America and some in the Asia-Pacific region as well. Much of our oil and gas production in Western Canada happens on the traditional lands of the First Nations and Métis peoples. It's this interaction that really set the foundation for Cenovus and neighboring nations to build long-term relationships, because we're going to be there for the long term. We continuously work to build and maintain those relationships with members of these communities. Our attitude is that if Cenovus is making gains by operating in these territories, then the Indigenous communities also need to be benefiting alongside us. A couple of years ago, Cenovus became a sustaining partner of the First Nations Major Projects Coalition. Our shared values around Indigenous economic inclusion made that partnership a natural fit. Our relationships at Cenovus with Indigenous communities are built on two key components. The first is economic reconciliation. We place a high priority on using local Indigenous businesses. That's resulted in $4.5 billion in partnerships since 2010. Last year alone, Cenovus did more than $650 million of work with Indigenous businesses near our operations, and we continue to look for more opportunities. Secondly, we demonstrate a genuine commitment to reconciliation beyond just financial partnerships. By doing our part to work with local leaders and provide the support that they recommend to us that will help make their communities more resilient. This includes enabling multiple programs that support Indigenous youth, health, and educational opportunities. Our partnership with Inspire, and I know that they're here today, to provide scholarships for Indigenous youth is just one example, as is our Indigenous Housing Initiative, which I am especially proud of. Indigenous communities told us that a lack of housing was a critical issue for them, and we listened, and then we acted. Working closely with 6 Indigenous communities near our oil sands operations, we're providing more than $60 million over 5 years to help these communities build 200 homes. We've already funded 121 homes since 2020, with dozens more in various stages of readiness. And this is just the pilot stage of this initiative. We invite other corporations here in this room and across Canada to reach out to us and to the communities if you want to work with us to launch a similar program in your region. It has really been life-changing, some of these communities tell us. So, enough about Cenovus and our work to support reconciliation. I could talk about that forever. But it's time now to talk about something I'm excited about as an Albertan. The Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. AIOC puts the term economic reconciliation into action by providing support and resources to Indigenous communities looking to make strategic investments. It provides a made-in-Alberta solution to empower Indigenous communities to invest in major projects. I have been around the world, and I have personally heard AIOC being acknowledged many times as an example of best practice. No one knows how important these opportunities are for Indigenous communities more than our next speaker. It's my great pleasure to introduce Shanna Martineau. She's the CEO of AIOC. As a provincial Crown Corp, AIOC's mandate is to serve as a catalyst for Indigenous prosperity and independence. It accomplishes this through investment and involvement in Alberta's natural resources, agriculture, transportation, and telecom sectors. Prior to joining AIOC, Shanna had an extensive and diverse background in the financial services sector. Her experience includes strategy and consulting in the key sectors under the AIOC mandate. Shanna has been recognized for her efforts to foster inclusion and diversity for women in leadership and Indigenous peoples. She has a track record of building high-performance teams, both inside and outside of the boardroom. Her governance experience encompasses several board positions, including time as the Enterprise Risk Finance and Audit Committee Chair of a national sport organization. Shanna is a proud member of Frog Lake First Nation on Treaty 6 territory. She's a graduate of the University of Alberta with a degree in economics, and she recently received her designation from the Institute of Corporate Directors. So before I welcome Shanna to the stage, we are going to watch a quick video, and then Shanna.
My name is Mary McKenzie. I was born and raised in Anzac. My family's been here for about 400 years. I remember when I was a kid, we used to live in a teepee and travel and follow the animals and all the real stuff on the land.
Historically, as a people, we were hunter-gatherers. So there's that transition to this new world. And so there's barriers out there. And historically, the government has provided a lot of programs and services that we depend on. But we'd like to move away from full dependence on that and be independent ourselves.
Alberta is leading the way in what we call economic reconciliation. The government of Alberta created the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation to provide loan guarantees, to provide the critical access to capital that Indigenous communities lacked to be able to invest in large-scale infrastructure projects.
Part of the problem is they're not able to take a First Nation because it's actually federal land and use it as collateral. So that kind of holds them back from getting a loan. We came up with the idea that if we created a backstop and help the First Nations so that they can borrow money at a reasonable rate, all of a sudden everything opens up.
So the very first AIOC program was the Cascade Power Plant near Hinton, which is part of our traditional territory. We now own a portion of that power plant, and the equity that flows from that comes to the nation, Lynn, we can do anything we need with it.
Hello there. It's a special day. Today is about making our reserve better.
Our nation's arena burnt down 32 years ago, and now we're rebuilding it as a multiplex.
For us being able to start construction on our multiplex is historic, because it's 32 years of not having anything. People look at it maybe as a building, but to us it's so much more. It's a start of bringing our people back together.
Having economic opportunities coming back into the communities help us with our citizens. With the first equity deal, we were able to purchase the over 205 acres of land. Having land as a Métis Nation, the government now recognizes us. With the second equity deal, we are wanting to move towards tourism, bringing bison back into Wood Buffalo.
It's not just tourism, it's food security for the nation, and also changing the land back to the way it used to be when the bison were there. We've spoken about a dream for our elders on the land, and that would be to wake up in their new elders housing, and they make themselves a nice cup of coffee, and they open their curtains and they can see the bison roaming on the land as they once did.
If we had bison here, it would be beneficial for the community. It teaches respect, to see how it's all used for food, clothing, shelter, and nothing's wasted.
I feel so honored and so privileged to serve in this role and to lead this program. The economic impact of our loan guarantee program is tremendous. By empowering Indigenous communities, we are driving economic returns and investment into First Nations and Métis groups to be fully participating in our economy and driving intergenerational change that will lead to a brighter future for all Albertans. I hope you enjoyed that video. We held it to debut here in front of this incredibly special audience, and so we hope that you really found it powerful. It makes me choke up every single time that I watch it. Thank you to Rona and Synovus for the wonderful introduction. I really want to applaud that organization for the outstanding work that they're doing. It's just incredible. So bravo to Synovus and all the great work you do. So today, I also want to thank the FNMPC leadership group and organizers. This is an incredible conference, and it's just been action-packed and nonstop, and we're still going strong, 2.5 days later. So thank you for all the wonderful work that you do today and every day. So today, I'm here to talk to you about government loan guarantees and how they can transform the economic opportunity for our nations and for our country. So I'll share some of the journey that we have been on for just a little over 4 years in Alberta, and we'll highlight a few of our lessons learned along the way. So I'm going to start in 2019, when then Premier Jason Kenney brought a campaign promise to life. He set Alberta on the path that we are on today. This promise was rooted in a vision for a brighter future for First Nations, Métis settlements, and all of Alberta. The entrepreneurial spirit envisioning and nurturing AIOC has been instrumental to our success. Aligned with the imperative laid out by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action, the Government of Alberta took a bold step in creating AIOC, and this provided a mechanism for accessing capital that Indigenous communities had not yet experienced in Canada. Through economic partnerships, we have demonstrated the ability to achieve remarkable results, and together we have moved mountains. Active reconciliation, in Alberta we call it reconciliation, is happening in Alberta thanks to AIOC's loan guarantee program. In 4 short years, we have deployed $680 million in loan guarantees, enabling over $1.5 billion in Indigenous investment in our province. This is investment, yes, I think so. Sorry. I am so proud of the work that we do every day, and you see the impact on the video. That's what it really means. That means that there are real returns flowing into those communities today. $34 million a year net of loan payments is estimated to flow into communities this year and every year for the next 30 years. That means north of $1.3 billion net of loan payments will enable and benefit our Indigenous communities in Alberta. These revenue streams can be securitized towards meeting other goals. The communities involved, like the ones that you saw here today, have utilized them to purchase land, improve facilities, develop social programs, and then reinvest in other economic development projects. The success has been a beacon of hope and progress. We are leading the way nationally and globally with our program, and we are not done yet. The model that we've developed is a blueprint that can be adapted and adopted by other jurisdictions. AIOC has worked very collaboratively with FNMPC, NRCan, the province of BC, and other organizations to help build their programs. And we believe this exemplifies our commitment to inclusive growth and development right across our country. We stand ready to share our experiences and insight with anyone that wants to walk along this journey with us. We have seen the power of partnerships and collective progress. It's an exciting time for Indigenous people in Canada today. After more than a century of being held back from economic participation due to restrictions in the Indian Act, we are now seeing a path forward. I'm proud of the role that AIOC has played in helping inspire corporations and other jurisdictions to support Indigenous partnerships. We have true momentum now. And there was a time, just a few short years ago, where it was said that major projects could not be done in our country, that relationships with the Indigenous peoples were too contentious. It was too fraught with risk. And today, the Alberta government proudly talks about finding a way through all of that, and they're doing it by supporting Indigenous partnerships through our program. What once was a significant challenge is now become a core strength, and the world is watching. As seen in the video, Whitefish Goodfish Lake First Nation participated in our first deal, a partnership with Kineticor on the Cascade Power Plant. They were also able to partner with Enbridge on the Athabasca trunk line, and more recently with Wolf Midstream on the Access NGL system. Each of these deals has provided a step change towards economic prosperity for just that one nation. You can see how emotional everyone is. This will transform their community. Cascade revenues went to acquire land adjacent to the reserve for future expansion. The plans include a cattle ranch. The revenues from subsequent transactions are being used to finance the multiplex, and that will become the center of their community. First Nations Bank, by the way, led the financing arrangement for that multiplex, leveraging the revenue streams from our project. So thank you to Bill and your team for that support. We look forward to more collaborative partnerships like those. And each time I watch that video, I am moved. The stories contained and others like them are truly inspirational. Chief Stan Houle has mentioned the betterment of their nation so many times, and he's emphasized that none of this would be possible without the AIOC Loan Guarantee Program. He also talks fondly about his committed partners. The benefits of the equity partnerships impact well beyond the Indigenous groups involved. The benefits ripple outward like a pebble dropped in a pond. So let's talk a little bit more about Cascade for a minute as an example. In August 2020, AIOC provided a $93 million loan guarantee to facilitate 6 First Nations to become equity partners in that project. and it is an energy-efficient, combined-cycle natural gas power facility near Edson. Cascade is expected to supply 8% of Alberta's average electricity demand. It was integral as part of the province's transition away from coal-fired power. And during the middle of January this year, the power plant delivered its first megawatt of power to the grid. As a finance person, I was pretty thrilled to know that it was coming together and was actually going to work. But I was even more thrilled a few days later. So it was a Saturday evening. It was -40 and even colder with the wind chill. All Albertans received an emergency alert, something like an Amber Alert that you got on your phone. Oops, I just spilled my water. The urgent request was to immediately reduce power consumption by turning off lights and appliances. We got instructions to unplug any high-use devices such as computers. I was frightened. In Alberta, we'd never seen anything like this before, and I'm sure many were. As I roamed around my house, turning off lights and unplugging things, I wondered what rolling brownouts would do to our city and our town and our province in these weather conditions. I thought in particular about the less fortunate, those that have trouble paying their electricity bills and putting food on the table at the best of times. What would it do for them with no heat, no lights, no computers? Coming from a resource-rich area, I think we've often taken reliable power for granted. And I knew that Cascade had delivered some power to the grid that week, and I was grateful it was coming online. So when I look back at when we approved that project in 2020, we had no idea just how critical this infrastructure was to Alberta's power system. It is critical in the dead of winter that we have reliable power, and we're not the only jurisdiction to have concerns about that. Beyond that, the plant's construction created 600 jobs in the community, increasing opportunity for local businesses, restaurants, hotels, accommodations, and 25 long-term jobs. The mayor of Edson describes it as saving his town. So the rippling impacts of this deal continue, and it's just about to go fully online. It is critical that we are able to bring these large infrastructure projects to fruition in our country, and Alberta has learned that the way to do this is through Indigenous partnerships. While Cascade was our first deal, and we eagerly await its full deployment, the decisions and negotiations from that transaction laid the foundation for the entire AIOC program. It helped to establish the risk mitigation principles we continue to adhere to today. With each new partnership, we learn something new to carry forward. I'm also proud to say in those 4 years, we have not had an impaired loan. I will share a bit more about the transformative partnerships that we've supported and the lessons learned from them in the spirit of sharing and learning. And we hope that our lessons learned will help you along your journey of reconciliation. We also hope to inspire you with the art of the possible. Each one of these transactions has set new benchmarks for collaboration, trust building, and strategic business endeavors. These deals are more than financial transactions. They forge lasting relationships, drive sustainability, and empower Indigenous peoples. So starting with Cascade, this venture exemplifies the power of having ready, willing, and able partners like Connecticut. Their openness to discussing Indigenous equity from day one and continued engagement has set the standard for inclusive growth. The Alberta government took this opportunity and built a sustainable, replicable model and organization in the AIOC from this project. We turned a dream into reality based on this project. The Northern Courier deal supported 8 First Nations and Métis communities to invest $40 million into a pipeline system. And this transaction really taught us patience and perseverance, the importance of meticulous alignment among stakeholders. The transaction took 18 months to close. So I want you to stop and think about the commitment required by all sides to work your way through negotiations for 18 months. The learning curve has been steep, but incredibly rewarding and has paved the way for our future projects. The Lindbergh Cogeneration Project was a refinance. The nation was able to access financing on its own, and our involvement served to amplify the impact and drive greater returns net of low loan payments via lower interest rates for the nation. Our communities need every dollar, and so we're happy to help provide these through our loan guarantee programs. I'm going to take you to the fall of 2022. Enbridge's partnership with 23 First Nation and Métis settlements captured the attention of the country and the world. From all over North America, people asked, how did you get this done? My own nation was a part of that deal. And I remember my father remarking at the time, he said, Shanna, I never thought that I would see the day that the Cree and the Dene and the Métis would do a deal together, yet here we are all together, all celebrating, and it was a momentous occasion. So for this transaction, AIOC provided a $250 million loan guarantee and supported a total investment of $1.12 billion in the Athabasca Trunkline assets. This was the first time that we had stacked credit facilities to achieve investment on this monumental scale, and we weren't sure how the markets would respond, but the response was incredible. In fact, many of my team have been meeting with debt investors earlier today to learn more about what's coming next and how they can continue to participate. The strong relationships and commitment by Enbridge was key to the value of trust and longstanding relationships. And this experience helped inform our approach to working with other jurisdictions with emerging loan guarantee programs, and together we are stronger. Last year, 2023, we closed 3 transactions for $273 million in loan guarantees through the investments in the Wolf Access NGL pipeline, Clearwater Midstream, and the Wembley gas plant. And the Clearwater Midstream enabled investments by 12 First Nations and Métis groups in upstream assets. So this was a first for 2 reasons. 1, different level of risk at the E&P level, and then 2, these were all new groups to us, new communities. None of them had participated in a transaction before. So we were building relationships from scratch, at least on our side. The area was very hard hit by wildfires. These communities really desperately needed the opportunity. And at the kickoff meeting for the project, the groups actually openly shared with us. They said, you know what, this is going to be hard because we don't traditionally get along that well. We don't always like each other. You know, and I see someone smiling in the front. This isn't unusual, right? And the project was indeed a journey. You know, it was a heavy lift, and it required the perseverance and commitment by all the parties. But one of the things I was most proud of was at the celebration, multiple leaders from different communities talked about how the process brought them together. They were closing the deal as friends. And this highlighted the importance of transparent communication, building in a really structured process, and really making sure that everyone is heard and feels heard and is brought to the table. And, you know, finally, the Wembley gas plant and the Access NGL projects were similar to other transactions we've done. And so after 7 closed transactions, I feel like we're finally getting to replicability and scalability of our model. You know, everyone's bespoke, but we've learned a lot along the way. And again, we're happy to share our learnings with you. Each one of these transactions is transformative. It brings immense financial gains. We build bridges, we foster trust and relationships, and we're creating sustainable impact that will benefit for generations to come. As we move forward, let us carry away these takeaways: creativity and openness to partnerships. This is not, I tell corporate partners all the time, this is not your, you don't send your corp dev teams in there on their own and let them box with someone else's corp dev teams. It's just not how this works. You need patience, commitment, and perseverance by all sides. The participation in just one transaction has the power to fundamentally transform and change the participants, all participants. Nations are empowered and knowledgeable. They have greater financial resources and acumen. Our corporate partners truly understand their Indigenous neighbors and their partners, and they come away with Indigenous values and wisdom that just makes their business better. Everybody wins. Industry leaders who share in our vision have made these partnerships possible. We commend and recognize corporate partners that we have worked with: Kineticor, Suncor, Strathcona Resources, Enbridge, Wolf Midstream, Tamarack Valley Energy, and New Vista Energy for their leadership in reconciliation. Bravo, we couldn't do it without you. And thank you to the 42 First Nations and Métis settlements that we have worked with so far. We're working on building out that number as quickly as we can. Thank you for trusting us, walking this journey with us. Together, we are proving that meaningful partnerships are the key to unlocking the future of shared prosperity. And last November, Alberta's vision for Indigenous partnerships grew even larger with the announcement increasing our loan guarantee capacity to $3 billion. Alberta is demonstrating an unwavering commitment to creating a brighter, more inclusive future for all of us. At COP28, we carried this message to the world, showing a pathway forward, not just for our nation, but for so many others that are in similar circumstances around the globe. We've received interest from jurisdictions like Mexico, Japan, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Foreign investors are looking at deploying capital in Alberta because of our progressive approach to Indigenous relations. Truly, together we are stronger. The tangible results and positive impacts of our program are undeniable, so much that our program is now seen as a critical element of Alberta's economic strategy. At CERA Week, Alberta Energy Minister Brian Jean showcased our approach and how that translates into increased tax base, growing revenues, and a thriving industry landscape. The recent federal budget announcement underlines the significance of initiatives like AIOC's Loan Guarantee Program in driving productivity and unlocking economic potential at a national level. And so we applaud the recent program announcements by BC and the federal government. We know that so many people in this room had invested great energy, time, and resources. The team at NRCan, the team at FNNPC. I know so many nations and business leaders have come together to support that deployment. So we finally got it here. Well done. Now we have to figure out a way to operationalize that. But I know the NRCan team is exhausted, but they are on it. We have all seen firsthand how strategic Indigenous partnerships and a focused vision can pave the way for transformative change. Imagine what can be achieved when you look at what our program in just one region of our country has accomplished so far in 4 short years. Imagine what 4 more years can bring. Imagine with determination, collaboration, and innovation converging towards a common goal, the sky is the limit. Chief Stan Hoole's words echo a sentiment shared by many Indigenous leaders across our nation. Economic prosperity paves the way for social and cultural resurgence. So thank you again to FNMPC for such a wonderful conference and your ongoing and determined leadership over the past 10 years. As we all navigate economic and social reconciliation, let's keep focused on empowering Indigenous peoples economically and socially. At AIOC, we stand together with you in your commitment to build partnerships and sustainable development based on the values of reconciliation and shared prosperity. Together, we can build a brighter future and we can move mountains. Thank you so much for joining us today. And just remember, in Alberta, we call it reconciliation. Hi, hi.